I'm sorry, but every detail in the golf swing matters, and yet none of them matter the way you think they do. That might sound like I'm talking in circles, but hear me out. If you've been obsessing over whether your left wrist is bowed or cupped, the exact height of your hand's setup, or whether your stance is 1 inch wider or narrower, you're not wrong to care about those details. The problem is that most golfers look at those details in isolation without a bigger plan. And when you zoom in that close without understanding the full picture, you end up stacking tip after tip like a Jenga tower until it all collapses. I know firsthand because that's exactly what I did for a decade. I wasted 10 years chasing the wrong details, thinking the next aha moment would finally make me consistent. And spoiler alert, it never did. I would hit one great shot and think, that's it, I've cracked the code, only for the next shot to be an absolute disaster. Then my brain would go right back to searching for the missing piece. And for every pro who did one thing, there was another pro who did the exact opposite. I'd get caught up in all the tiny variables, the bowing of my wrist versus the cupping, the exact amount of knee bend that I need to have at the setup position, keeping my lead arm perfectly straight, or maybe I don't need it perfectly straight, being 1 inch versus 4 inches from the end of my club shaft at the setup position with the different clubs, wondering why my arms hang straight down with an iron, but they're over my chin with driver, or that might be different for my swing. With irons, I'd hear turn your shoulders down, but with driver, don't over tilt. With 3-wood, I'd hear sweep the ball. With wedges, hit down. Then came wrist hinge debates, vertical, diagonal, set the wrist early, set the wrist late, slow takeaway, low and slow versus a wide takeaway, weight forward the entire swing versus a centered pivot and actually shifting your weight, matching shaft angles at setup and impact. I even went down the rabbit hole of pretty much every single swing method in golf: stack and tilt, single plane, square to square, rotary, all of the swing methods you could think of. And some things clicked for a few rounds, then they vanished. So if you've ever felt like you're spinning in circles, you're not alone. The breakthrough came when I stopped chasing all the details and started chasing the right details. Because here's the truth: every detail in the golf swing matters, but only in how it connects to the two things that actually control your swing. And those two things are your body turn and your arm swing. That's it. If you can get your body to turn the same way every time and your arms to swing the same way every time, you're as close as you'll ever get to making the same swing every time. And that's the whole point of golf, right? To make the same motion over and over at a ball that isn't moving. Everything else, grip tweaks, stance width, ball position, wrist angles, are only important in how they support those two core movements. Think about it. If your body turn changes from one swing to the next, your arms are forced to make compensations. And every compensation changes how the club face returns to the ball. And that is inconsistency. And if your arms are swinging on a different path every time, even with a perfect body turn, you're not going to square the face consistently. That's why some shots fly straight and pure, and others are slices, hooks, or worm burners, all in the same round. When you master these two movements, the little details stop working against you and start working for you. That's when the game feels simple. That's when the ball starts flying the way you pictured it before you swung. Right now, if you're frustrated with your game, you might be thinking, okay, but I've been told 100 different things to fix my body turn, my arm swing. So which is it? And that's where golfers get trapped. You try to fix everything at once: your grip, your takeaway, your tempo, your release, and you might get one or two working, but the rest falls apart. Here's the analogy I like to use. If you were building a house, you wouldn't start hanging picture frames before the foundation was poured. The body turn is your foundation. The arm swing is your frame. Everything else, the details, are like paint, color, and furniture. Nice to have, but meaningless without the structure. So yes, every detail in the golf swing matters. But if you try to fix those details in the wrong order without understanding the two movements they have to support, you're setting yourself up for inconsistency. Once you train your body to turn the same way every time and your arms to swing the same way every time, the details you've been obsessing over start to fall into place naturally. You don't have to think about them. You don't have to constantly wonder, if you're doing it right. And when that happens, golf stops feeling like you're steering the ball around the course and starts feeling like you're just swinging freely. And the ball is getting in the way of your swing. The contact feels effortless, the ball launches high, carries farther, and holds its line. You start trusting your driver on tight holes and your irons start hitting greens instead of bouncing off the back. This is the exact point I want to get you to. And it's why the rest of the video is going to walk you through how to train those two movements so they stick. And we're going to do so using one drill. So grab your club and have your left hand at the top of it and your right hand at the bottom of the grip, more of a split grip look. So if I go back to Nate 8 years ago, here is one example of what I would be guessing on. So for instance, I would be guessing at how much a knee bend I should have at setup. There are so many pros with varying amounts of knee bend at setup, some with barely any, like Bubba Watson, and some with a lot, like Keegan Bradley. So how am I supposed to know how much knee bend I should have? That's one of many details that would be impossible to answer without a system for the golf swing to follow, so you can customize that for your swing. That's why I teach the natural balance system to the golf swing, so every detail like that can be answered. Real quick, if you're serious about improving your golf game, I've created a brand new laser training system inside the ManningGolf Academy that helps you implement the natural balance swing perfectly from setup to impact fast, simply, and easily. Click the link in the description to start now and get all the details right. But that detail of knee bend falls under the turning of the body in the same way every time. In other words, the natural balance of the body. Every single person will turn their body in a unique way back and through every time. So if we're standing straight up and down, turning our body flat back and through every time, we can discover how our legs want to cooperate. So if I grab the club with that split grip, what I'd like for you to do standing straight up and down is hinge the club flat to the ground like this. And then push off each leg one at a time. So trail leg, then the lead leg, and back and forth until you feel like it's one continuous motion back and through. All the while, you're keeping the club flat to the ground. So the shaft isn't going up, it isn't going down, it is staying flat to the ground as you turn back and through. And then you can bend this over and start turning along an angle towards the ground, keeping the concept the same. And you can see once you tap into the natural balance of the body, how much knee bend you need. Then you can mess around with it and say, oh, let's start with a little more knee bend at setup. And you can see once you start swinging, you're now out of balance, off the natural balance of the body. And then if I started with a little bit less knee bend, now I am standing up out of the shot. Or if I'm not doing that, I'm dipping down to counteract that. So you can see how powerful getting every little detail in the golf swing is when you simplify the swing into these two basic movements. And that was just one example. You can imagine how many more factors this affects. This is just one example of how a single setup detail can support or sabotage your two core movements. And this is exactly why I stopped chasing every random tip I saw online and built a system instead. Random tips are like throwing ingredients into a pot without a recipe. You might get lucky, but most of the time you just end up with a mess. A system gives you the recipe. You know exactly what to focus on in the right order so that every detail supports the main structure of your swing. For another example of how we can use this drill, let's answer a question that stumped me for quite a while. Will you be more consistent with a straight lead arm or by letting it bend? The answer might surprise you, but real quick, let me show you a couple pros at the top of the swing. This is Scotty Scheffler, clearly bent, right? Xander Schauffele, clearly bent. Bryson DeChambeau, clearly bent. Justin Thomas, clearly bent. Now let me show you some counterexamples. Rory McIlroy, perfectly straight lead arm. Min-Woo Lee, perfectly straight. So right there, 4 of those players are currently, as of the making of this video, considered the best in the world. 3 of them had a pretty bent lead arm, yet so much golf instruction talks about keeping it straight. So what is the takeaway here? Well, let's go back to the split hand drill. So one of the 2 fundamentals I told you to focus on is getting the arms to swing in the same way every time. The natural balance of the arms, letting the arms swing back and through in the same way every time. The drill I want to give you is to keep the hips remaining perfectly forward and swing the club head flat to the ground back and through every time without letting your hips move. If your hips move, this means by swinging your arms, you are engaging the body, which we don't want. We want to train the balance of the body and the balance of the arms separately. So for me in my swing, if I keep my lead arm straight, I will get thrown off the ball in this drill. That is because my arms got off their natural balance. It affected my body position. But if I allow my arm to bend just slightly, I can make the same arm motion going back and around my body every time. This is just one more example of how finding the arm's natural balance can solve all the tiny details of the golf swing that make a big impact. And that's the beauty of this approach. You stop guessing, you stop wondering if you've got the right amount of knee bend, the right amount of lead arm bend, or the right wrist angle. You start knowing because every detail in your swing now has a purpose. When you train the natural balance of the body and the natural balance of the arms separately, then blend them together, the game stops feeling complicated. You're no longer steering the ball or hoping for a good shot. You're just making the same simple motion over and over, and the ball happens to be in the way. That's how you build a swing you can trust under pressure. That's how you start hitting driver further without forcing it, and your irons start hitting more greens without thinking about mechanics. If you want to shortcut years of trial and error and finally master these two movements, I've laid it all out for you step by step inside my laser training system in the ManningGolf Academy. It's the fastest, simplest way to lock in the natural balance swing so it sticks. And once it does, you'll have the most consistent, reliable swing of your life. And for the handful of golfers who want to skip all the trial and error and work directly with me one-on-one until your swing is consistent, repeatable, and reliable every single round, I do offer private coaching. It's not for everyone, but if you're serious, it's the fastest way to become the golfer you've always wanted to be. Click the link in the description and let's get to work.